14th meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. It's 7:02 p.m. and we'll start with a call to order and calling the roll. Dave, would you please call roll?
Claire?
Here.
Len?
You're on mute, Len.
Here. Greg? Jill?
Here.
Dan?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
And I'm here too, all present.
Great, thank you. Item 1 is the Board of Supervisors report, and we have Lena Silberman here from the Supervisor Horsley's office to give the report. Go ahead, Lena.
Thank you so much. And quickly, I do have a few fire-related things. Is that okay if I do that now, or would you prefer that later? Now is okay?
Yeah, it's okay to do that now.
Great, thank you. So my first update is about one of the 3 projects that was on the Parks 5-year fuel management program, the Governor's Project to be specific. That project, which originally was 83 acres of land, has had 65 acres of retreatment completed this month. In more detail, Parks Department field staff and contractors thinned the understory vegetation and then removed small resprouts of eucalyptus to maintain the area. I also have an update about the $75,000 scoping project in El Granada, which I think is tentatively being addressed as the El Granada Fire Resiliency Scoping Project from now on. But if you have a different title you would prefer, let me know. I have just submitted the item to County Council and received review, so it will be going to the Board of Supervisors on August 3rd for a funding approval. In the meantime, Sheena from the RCD and I are working to coordinate the first meeting of a committee to form the RFP, which is the request for, I can't remember what P stands for, but basically the request for contractors. And we will be having MCC input in that meeting. So I think we'll be reaching out to Michelle about that very shortly by the end of this week. There's a new grant that our office was made aware of called the Fire Coordinator Grant. It actually kind of reminds me of when some members of the MCC asked for a fire czar for the county. It basically would be someone who is coordinating between the county and cities in unincorporated area to educate, encourage, and develop countywide collaboration and coordination among various wildfire mitigation groups. So we are working to submit an application for that grant. It would be for up to $175,000 for an 18-month period. And I will include a link with more information about this grant in the chat. The pump track in Quarry Park went to the Planning Commission for approval of its coastal development permit today. It was approved 4-1. Also, I was made aware by Senator Becker's office that the Big Lift, which is a preschool to 3rd grade collective impact initiative, will be receiving an additional $1 million in state funding. That funding will help fund a 5-week summer learning program with full-day STEAM and literacy enrichment for 1,200 low-income kindergartners through 3rd grade students. And my last update has to do with COVID-19. Our COVID-19 cases have been rising in San Mateo County. We are averaging 27 new COVID cases per day, which you can compare to 12 new cases a couple of weeks ago. Just in case anyone needs to know this, the Great Plates program, which was helping serve older adults bring foods to their houses if they're unable to access food and have food insecurity, has instituted a new second course program, which will help the people who may still need that resource. And I just want to say for people who might be interested, I included more information in my written report, but the Delta variant has become the major strain circulating in California. And so far, San Mateo County has seemed to follow that trend as well. So thank you so much, and I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Lena. If anyone has any questions for Lena or at any point during this meeting, the protocol is to raise your hand, and you can find the hand raise button generally under the reactions tab at the bottom of your screen. It may also be located under the participants tab or the participants section if you can't find it under reactions. If you're on a mobile phone, it would be under the More tab at the bottom of your phone if you're using the app, or if you are using the dial-in, it would be *9. So we will start with Sid Young for questions.
Hi, Lena. I was just on the Jackie Spear telephonic town hall call, and there was a senior asking about having to go to the store now where people aren't wearing masks, and seniors are more vulnerable because, even if they're vaccinated and they say this Delta variant could still affect people who are vaccinated. And so she was saying that she felt very upset that, they have dropped the requirement for people to wear the mask in the grocery store and at the pharmacies where seniors have to go. So can you give a little more information about the second course program? Is that going to be meal delivery for seniors like before, or is it something else?
Great question. It is meal delivery like before. Mm-hmm. And I have a link to more information that I can throw in the chat right now.
Okay, so is it just do you have to sign up again for people that had it or not?
That's a good question. I think you have to sign up again. I don't know. I don't think it naturally carries over.
All righty, thank you. I'll pass it on to those seniors that I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Next, Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, thank you, Lena, for your report tonight. A couple things in regarding to the work at Quarry Park. I'd like to request if there could be some before and after photo documentation. Clearly, it'd be difficult to do 88 acres, but, I think it's reasonable to have some example, the main areas that are being worked so that the community can, have a photocopy of it. Also, I am still waiting to hear from Director Monowitz as to how he can take out the office and not enforce the LCP and in regards to the fire station lighting. The conditions of approval. There's clearly light shining off the property, and it's blue rich and bright. In my opinion, it's a absolute violation of the LCP and other zoning that have been addressed at our MCC letter. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's a great comment about the before and after photos, and I'll see what I can do. I'll contact Nicholas Calderon from the Parks Department. And on the other topic, I will let the supervisor know of your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Graham Wood.
Unmute myself. Is that working? Yeah. Okay. Hi, Lena. Thanks for the report. A couple of questions on the governor's project. The first one, you saying that the governor's project work has been completed. Now, back in 2019, the governor's project was completed to the extent that the budget was spent. It wasn't completed to the extent that the original, the 100 acres that was specified to be worked on was all worked on. There was a sizable amount of it that never got any work done on it. And it looks like the work that's being done as part of the governor's project now also isn't fixing that extra area. And I don't see any plans to fix that extra area. Right. And the second one is about the work that's been done this year. From where I'm sitting, maybe I'm just being unlucky, but I haven't actually seen any areas that have been treated near me. I've heard work going on, but certainly the areas that were closest to me, none of those areas have been worked on. So I would like to understand what the basis for picking particular areas is, because the area closest to me actually looks worse now than it did before the work was done last year in clearing.
Thanks, Graham. Yeah, to the point of your first comment, I think that's exactly right. The work stated that they were trying to do with the governor's project was work to reestablish and continue. It wasn't to how do I put this in my words? It was just to take out sprouts and anything that might have grown. They weren't trying to expand that exact field rate at that time.
Well, that work never, the original project for the governor's project never got completed. A large amount of it was
yeah, and that's not in the scope of this one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Lena? I have a question for Lena. At the last meeting, we talked about the $500,000 that was allocated toward the medians in El Granada, and I believe that was slated to be discussed or approved at the budget meetings in late June. I just wanted to confirm whether that budget item was approved.
Yes, good question. And that was confusing to me. That one I had trouble with, but it has been confirmed, the funding.
Okay.
So DPW has that funding to pursue that project.
Great, thank you. Okay, I think the hands that are still raised are, we've already gotten to those people, so we will move on now. Thank you. Dan, did you have another question?
Yeah, just real quick.
Okay.
There was talk about other grants available. I think it was Kellex that mentioned in regards to Quarry Park. And I think the community is extremely hoping that more work will be done. I understand Nicholas's position, but we're hoping that with all the grants and the dire need that we're looking at in our future right now, that something more can happen. Do you have anything to report on possible grants that we could get more work done at Quarry Park?
I don't have anything to report, but it never hurts if you hear of a grant. I know that RCD will keep us mostly apprised of grants that are up and coming, so will CAL FIRE and Fire Safe, but it never hurts to send anything my way if you do hear of one, just in case something falls through the cracks.
Okay, hopefully everybody's looking real hard though. Thank you.
All right, I was on mute. Thank you, Lena, and thanks, Dan, for those questions. I don't know if we have any other government officials tonight. I know that Harvey Rarback, who normally speaks from the city of Half Moon Bay, is attending a special meeting of the Half Moon Bay City Council focused on policing, which was scheduled at the same time as our meeting. So if we do have any other government officials who would like to speak tonight, please go ahead and raise your hand. I don't think that we do. So we will move on to public comment. This is comments on items not on tonight's agenda. So not about wildfire, not about the Miramar Drive dispute, and not about the MCC website upgrade. If anyone would like to speak on any other topic, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Sid, I saw you clapped, but I don't think that's it. I don't know if you were intending to raise your hand. Okay, you were. All right.
I raised
Sid,
it,
please.
and it just suddenly went down.
Okay, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to need 3 minutes, but two things happened today. I saw Len was on it too, but I attended the Fire Safe Council meeting, and they are looking for I think it's Len, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, two representatives.
Let me just have you pause right here, because that is a wildfire related topic that we are going to get to in the next agenda items.
But you already know about the fact they're looking for representatives?
Yes, and we're going to be discussing that, I believe.
Okay. And do you know about the AB 38 where it's going to require sellers to retrofit their homes and disclose what they've done? Or are you going to discuss that? And I'll wait if that's the case. I'll wait.
Is that fire related?
Yes.
Retrofits? Okay.
Are related and selling your home related point of sale item. Okay, go ahead. I'll do it later.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments on items not on tonight's agenda? All right, I don't see any, so this public comment period is closed. Any announcements from members of the council? Okay, we can save that for anything for council activity at the end of the meeting. Next, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We have three very disparate items on the consent agenda tonight. One is the minutes for the last meeting. Two is the fiscal year 2021 treasurer's report. And all of these items are available on the website and have been for several days. And three is a letter on the Brown Act that we discussed at the last meeting and would like to have approved under consent. Len, go ahead.
Move the treasurer's report to be part of 4C.
Okay, well, I don't think it really qualifies as part of 4C, but we can move it to the regular agenda between 4B and 4C. Okay, so we'll remove the treasurer's report from the consent agenda. So now we only have items 3A and 3C. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'm not fully aware of the Brown Act discussion. Can we talk about that? Can we pull that also?
Okay, we have to pull that then. Okay. So we'll pull those two items from the consent agenda. Now the consent agenda only contains minutes from June 23rd. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you, Clara. Second. Okay, thank you. Dave, please call the roll for approval of the consent agenda item 3A.
Claire?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm yes, passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will move on to item 4A on the regular agenda. This is a wildfire status update, and I will hand it over to Len and Greg, but I believe Len is going to be presenting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is an update on wildfire. It has particularly slanted toward the fire safe San Mateo County Council. As Sid mentioned, they had a meeting, they have a monthly meeting, which was today. I attended that. And in particular, they mentioned over a month ago that they were forming an advisory committee. And the council was basically, the MCC was asked to nominate one person for that council, for that committee. At that point, I basically raised my hand to do that. And I can give an update on the process. It's not going as fast as I thought it might at that time. But just to be clear about what's there, there are going to be 5 zones in the county. You can see ours is the Midcoast zone, and there's 4 others. Basically, they said that over the next month, I think they'll be receiving applications to be on the committee, and they're looking for 2 people from each of the 5 zones. So the MCC was asked to provide 1 seat there. I think other people in the zone can apply as well, and the process of doing that is being worked out. So that's where that's at. I want to just sort of review, building on what Lena shared there. But basically, just to take a step back, it was on October 28th of last year when Rich Simpson came to our meeting and basically talked about the eucalyptus forest and medians that were present in El Granada and Quarry Park, and in fairly graphic detail told us what a major problem it represented. Not that was news, and also to scope the effort required to really transform that as a very, very long-term project and very, very expensive. At that point, that's been followed by many other meetings to deal with that, with particularly an emphasis on the eucalyptus, but also looking at the long-term aspect of it. At the supervisor's budget hearings, a couple of times I went there to raise the point, not as an item of discussion there, but basically, if you look at the parks budget, for example, for all of their parks, it's relatively small compared to what's required to make the overall transformation. And that's sort of where we're at now. At the last meeting, I put together this chart here, just looking at El Granada Quarry Park, and with the different colored areas, we're trying to identify where there are major eucalyptus growths or forests, and some of the things being undertaken there. Now, I think from a standpoint of current status, I think Lena gave a good update on the project work that's being done to date. She also mentioned, and Lena, could you remind me of the exact label of the El Granada Quarry Park RCD effort now? It's now got a more formal name.
Oh, sure. And it does not stick in my head at all. El Granada Fire Resiliency Scoping Project.
Does it have the word Quarry Park in it as well?
It does not, but if you would, I can see if we can add that. I don't see a problem with that.
No, I think that's a very important element because the two are closely intertwined, and that's how it's been framed. So I would like to have it phrased that way. And basically, what we have coming up, just going to jump around here, is that will be basically in August. They'll begin the actual work. I think it's in the first week of August. They're looking to have the funding for that effort approved. And then RCD will begin a process that's looking for involvement of the community and other organizations as well as they put together the RFP. Also in August, we expect to see the beginning of the removal of eucalyptus from selected portions of the medians, as well as the ongoing park projects. In response to the point that Dan raised, the bottom line is that RCD's effort as far as our local area is supposed to provide a basis for other grants. This isn't a grant to actually execute projects, but to provide a basis to acquire them. So it's a quite important effort for what we're trying to do. I think also with the median project underway, we'll then see all of the things that are really being done for year one. And I think that there's a number of discussions I've had really trying to work or talk to the different parties involved in these efforts, just to understand what they're contributing and how it fits together and what the opportunities are. And I've done this from the basis of participating in the Fire Safe Council. What I found in trying to sort of approach this at high speed, and at the last meeting, I put together data on the eucalyptus trees, both in El Granada and the medians. But basically, I think that it's a point in which with all of the year one efforts funded and underway, completed, or at least have a planned completion, we have a statement of where we're at, not where we're going to go. So what I'm trying to bring forward from the standpoint of the council are the opportunities that are there, that are brought up there, but there aren't other people that I could see beyond RCD and the Fire Safe Council that are really putting a lot of effort there. So I had thought to talk in more detail about these things, but I think really it's just to step back. I think comments have been made for what Lisa has brought up. And what I found is just to begin to talk to the different groups, understanding what they're doing or how they're collaborating is an effort in itself. So I've been devoting myself to do that. most particularly working with Nicholas, I'm looking to have a walk on El Granada Boulevard with Nicholas and some of the residents there, and hopefully also we have a WUI fire marshal for our area, just to look at the problem of that area, because I think they felt it was not as well recommended or not as well recognized. So those are just beginning efforts. I think also for the RCD effort, looking for all of these groups to participate or at least have input on what it takes to have a meaningful grant proposal or put forward, and that's coming up. Now, in addition, I think when you look at our responsibility in the zone, this is in the entire Midcoast, and our particular area is the hottest spot there, but we're also trying to understand how to provide it across those areas. And so I didn't want to say more than that today, but just to point out that things are moving, but they're slow in this sense. And I think our major effort should be to support the planning effort that RCD wants to do to see if we can get grants that are suitable for our needs near term. But we also have a larger problem, that is the nature of the scope of the problem, as Chief Sampson identified, is a much larger budget than anybody is dealing with. And so consequently, there's a very large gap between what we see as being done or even proposed near term and the nature of the problem if we truly want to make a major change in the community as far as the eucalyptus forests go. And I'm trying to understand the best way to bring that forward as a recommendation from the council in August. So those are just the touch points. I do want to mention at the Fire Safe meeting today, they had a group that first came to the Fire Safe meeting in November, talked about their work on modeling, fairly cutting edge modeling, and they really described a process that really provides and brings good science to that, and they're looking to bring it forward as a technology that can be employed. And so I'm hoping that they've been introduced to RCD as well, that can be incorporated. So when we try to look at the breadth of our problem, we'll have more science behind it. So that's a quick update from my end. I think, Greg, if you want to bring up any particular points that are important, this would be a good time to do it.
Yeah, I'd like to say one somewhat related issue, and then dive into what you just talked about, Glenn. I've filed with Caltrans requests for work to remove eucalyptus north of Volantos Tunnel at Frenchman's Creek and on, I want to say Miramar, is it Medio Avenue? And I've gotten responses, which may be automated, I'm not sure, which say they're agreeing to do something. You may be aware that a local resident created a petition, which I signed, and he apparently got Caltrans to agree to do something about the Caltrans highway bypass that runs from Pacifica through Montera. So those efforts are separate from Quarry Park. What I think I need to understand, and everybody here would like to understand, is how the two grants that you mentioned a long-term planning grant and another one, Len, how those relate to solving the problem of A, getting governance that treats us as a priority, and then B, how that's going to lead to more money. I, as you know, have been working with the local hazard mitigation plan. I'm expecting a draft in my possession within 2 weeks, and we'll all have an opportunity to comment on whether or not they have included the risks which we've identified, which you've previously seen on the wildfire issues list, and what our hopes and expectations for funding are. But there's a lot more that I think maybe needs to be discussed, and maybe the grants and planning efforts you're mentioning that are going to lead to it. But we have issues of assessment district, the fire marshal you mentioned, getting state funds as well as federal funds and blending it all together. So can you speak to how those grants are going to give us the kind of momentum we need? Because your main point was, this isn't a parks problem. This is a much bigger problem. Parks doesn't have the money for it. and we're trying to do X. So can you elaborate on that?
I guess what I can say about it, and I'm going to go share this screen again, that the organizations here, broadly stated, are ones that are directly involved in different parts of this issue. And what I found is that the time required to both make connections, find out who's looking at things in detail, both in terms of near-term efforts or others, is a time-consuming effort in itself. I think Lena does a really good job of keeping us up to date of the county actions there. But beyond that, I found that while there's receptiveness to open discussions, it's a longer-term effort. And consequently, when I think about the timetable and even what it would take to do it, and here I'm really seeing August 11th as the first time I would feel there's been enough input gathered, as well as seeing two of these efforts start up to make some recommendations as well as get further input. In short, I don't have a close answer. Now, Lena, you mentioned that the grant for coordination. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's really interesting. So it's through the state Fire Safe program. Let me pull up, I had the website open. And basically it is to hire someone to oversee countywide fuel reduction. I think evacuation routes might be allowed within that, educating the public, so basically those kind of things. And it would be an interconnective approach to fuel reduction and fire resilience.
And where would this report into the county's government structure?
That is a great question. I will find more out tomorrow when I have a meeting with the Office of Sustainability, the Office of Emergency Services, the county manager, and Supervisor Pine's office. I don't know at this point in time. It may be fire safe. Sometimes this is off. I guess some groups are applying for their fire safe to administrate. Others are having a group within the county, and I'm not sure what we're trying to pursue at this point.
Okay, so I mean, that would seem potentially relevant to the point you're asking after, Greg. The bottom line is this is the first I've heard of that as well. I know looking at the Fire Safe San Mateo County effort, which has a 30-year history, they're making a major effort to reorganize themselves or basically to be more effective. And at this point, that's an in-process effort. I can't, bring any specifics in terms of where they're going or how effective it will be. But I think, to me, the message problem itself remains both at the individual level as well as the county government, that if you think in terms of the transformation required, whether you look at it at the state level or down at our local community, it's still staggeringly large. And I found it personally, even in terms of committing time to the effort, one that you really have to think about what's the long game to get there. So I'm quite interested to see RCD open the discussion on their grant effort. And I've seen some additional things that come to it, but I couldn't say more. I did find that there was one effort to model fire for the county that was undertaken about 3 years ago out of the Office of Sustainability. And basically it was an early effort, one, and the COVID pandemic and its impact on staffing in the county basically had that to go on the shelf. I think the presentation we received today at the Fire Safe meeting was basically a product type of project that had a lot of substance behind it and is trying to provide a good overall tool to look at things. But in terms of that point of coordination, what Lena just mentioned would seem relevant, although it's completely separate from the Fire Safe Council that I attended. So I think it's just a sign that they're trying to see how to fit those things together, but not there yet.
Okay. Now, are you finished then, Len?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's go to questions and comments. Since this is primarily informational, I think we do have a desired outcome of identifying the next steps, so we can hear from the council on what different people think about that. So I'll go to the community for question. I see Dan has his hand raised. Are you looking to make a question or a comment, Dan?
Question
Okay.
for Nina and general comment as well.
Can you go with your question? Let's do council questions right now, then we'll go to the public for comment, and then we'll go around to the council and you'll have an opportunity to make a comment. So if you have a question for Lena, Dan, go ahead with that now.
Yes, okay. So prelude to the question is almost a year ago, last August of 2020, I started bringing this up and identified the concern about the evacuation, Highway 1 north of Lantos Tunnel, which Greg just mentioned a little while ago. Since then, Supervisor Horsley acknowledged that it was a concern. Somewhere on the line, I communicated with Senator Jerry Hill, and he clearly said that is something that the county should, communicate to Caltrans. And I've been trying to get a report back as to what has the county done, whatever talks they've had with Caltrans and what's the status of that. I think that you mentioned, Lena, a couple of meetings ago that there was some meeting and you were going to get back to us. Can you give us some kind of status report on not only north of Lantos Tunnel, but there's also, along highway, there's a lot of areas where Caltrans property has eucalyptus that are leaning into the highway, could potentially block evacuation. So do you have a status report? Anything that you could share with us on that?
Lena, is that what you just typed into chat?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Dan. So I was at that meeting, and at that meeting with Dina El Tawanzi, who is the new District 4, I believe, whatever our district is for Caltrans director, we let her know that we are interested in work on the coast side on some major evacuation routes for fuel reduction. And we asked if they would be open to receiving a letter from the supervisor and some other involved entities requesting that work. She said that would be very helpful. So with the help of the Fire Safe Council and CAL FIRE and North County Fire, our office drafted a letter requesting work in 2 specific evacuation routes, specifically Highway 92 approaching Half Moon Bay and Highway 1 at the southern end of Pacifica. That letter is completed and it's ready for signing and to be sent. We are just waiting on a map that we would like to attach with it that CAL FIRE is creating. The person who's making it is just on vacation, so hopefully it should be done by the beginning of next week.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, August of last year, there were dry lightning reports, and that's what kind of was a catalyst for all of this. Here we are. August is just around the corner. So I'm hoping that anything and everything can do to expedite. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, now we're going to go to the public, members of the public who have their hands raised. Each member will have up to 3 minutes to speak, and we're going to start with Sid Young.
Thank you. One of the things, Lena, just while I'm thinking of it, I didn't have my hand raised for this, but if and when that Caltrans letter goes out, could you make sure the MCC gets a copy so we can post it on our website for our files and all the, public can be aware of it?
Absolutely.
Great. That would be great, because I know that burning roadside vegetation can create a fire tunnel, and it makes it really difficult to evacuate in a fire tunnel or for firefighters to get through. So I think it's super important, and it's terrible it took them this long, but I guess people go on vacation. Anyway, Also, does anyone on the council, you can discuss this later, know if there's been a Midcoast specific fire cam installed yet? Because they did, on that fire safe meeting today, they did roll out a very high-tech AI fire cam, and they were looking for locations. But I think CAL FIRE was talking about.
Yes, Caroline.
I'm sorry.
The answer is yes.
There is
Where
a
are they
fire. We talked
located?
about it I can put a link in the chat of where it is. It's on Montera Mountain, I believe, and
Okay.
focused toward El Granada.
So they gave us one.
Right. You have 1 minute and 45 seconds left. I know you have a lot to
Okay.
get to. Go.
I do. I was just going to say on the Fire Safe Council thing, they did mention several grants, a PG&E grant for Old La Honda Road, Coastal Conservancy grant, Cal Fire Prevention grant, and also the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Reserve, Office of Sustainability. My question is, they get all these grants, but the problem is who pockets the money and doles it out and decides where it goes? Because the only thing I'm aware of is, the Parks Department got a bunch of grants from, I think, the state, the governor, and they put those to parks, but they haven't really given anything out to communities specifically. So, it's great to go out and get grants, but there's somebody, a little cabal of people, maybe just 2 supervisors that are deciding where all that money goes. So it'd be great to know where all the money's going and what it's really being spent on. It's nice to get the grants and announce it, but better yet to see what the results are. And then the last thing I wanted to say really quickly, and that was about the bill that they talked about today too, that starting July 1st, sellers will have to be required, if they're in a high fire severity zone, to make a disclosure on when they sell their house. It's like a point of sale disclosure that they've done their, what do you call it? Fire hardening and safety clearing of brush and that sort of thing. And I think if you do a Google, you can find different CAL FIRE checklists and stuff, and they actually will come by and inspect your property. So that's kind of an important thing to know for any sellers. I know that, the market's really hot right now, but if you're like in El Granada or the back of Montera, it's more important to know about that disclosure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. I just put 2 cameras, 2 links to the 2 cameras in our area. There's a brand new one at Pillar Point Harbor, and there's the one that we discussed at the last meeting on Montera Mountain. So those are linked to in the chat. Next, we're going to go to Graham Wood.
Okay. Thanks for the update, Len. It's really great to have someone who's focusing all of the different work that's going on around wildfires in the area. And it was great to hear that there's a plan to do a walk through the El Granada Boulevard area with Nicholas. I wasn't aware of that. Over the last several months, there's been a couple of communications from El Granada Boulevard residents with the MCC. There was a petition originally, and then there was a letter to the county manager that MCC was asked to offer support for. Given that, I'm a little surprised that on the spreadsheet for wildfire issues, I don't see. Last time I looked, anyway, I didn't see any entries in there for completing the El Granada Boulevard fuel break or completing the original scope of the governor's project. Because it seems to me that both of those things should be at least on the spreadsheet and being monitored. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that, Graham. That I don't know if Lynn or Greg would like to respond to that.
Oh,
Well, I think he's right. I think we should put it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, Nicholas sent a letter in response to the group that wrote that, and I mentioned trying to have a walking tour, hopefully with both Nicholas and the Wooey Fire Marshal, to look at the El Granada Boulevard area.
Right, but there hasn't been any comment from MCC, and MCC was asked to support the residents' position, and
Well,
yeah, it's certainly something we can add to the list of issues we're tracking. Sounds like, yeah, we can do that for the next meeting. We didn't update that document for this meeting.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Lucy Wicks.
Hi, thank you. I was hoping that, and maybe this is already under consideration, but a possible next step that the council might consider would be to write a letter of support of San Mateo County in the grant opportunity that Lena had mentioned, and wondering if that could be a next step that you all would consider, would be drafting a letter and writing a letter. It looks like the timeline hopefully would work out based on when that application for the grant could be considered. And maybe there is some discussion about if that's welcome. So thank you.
What I indicated in the timeline I showed was targeting August 11th for a letter both to the Board of Supervisors and the Fire Safe Board of Directors on wildfire to make it fairly encompassing both in near-term and long-term issues. So I see that as an important thing to do, but would like to have it well framed.
Okay. Thank you. Next,
I was
Donalyn. Oh, sorry.
Focus.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
Just on the grant part of it. I think, yes, another letter to the board more broadly, but my request was specifically targeting a letter of support for this particular grant. Thank you.
When you say particular grant, are you referring to the project Lena talked about that RCD is doing?
This would be the California Fire Safe Council's issuance of a grant opportunity for 24 counties. It's an 18-month grant of $175. It was linked within the chat.
That's the one that Lena.
Yes.
Lena, is that for a position or a person or a grant for delivery of services?
Basically, it's for staffing a person, but what can be done is contracting that so it gives flexibility to the county if when that contract expires, if they will continue it. And to Lucy's point, it's a really good idea, and I can find out in the next few days. I just don't even know if letters of support are allowed, so I can find out the answer to that question if the MCC would like.
Yes, please go ahead, Lena. And that's another item that we'll add to that tracking list of issues, because that's a new grant that we hadn't heard of previously. Okay. Next, we'll go to Donalyn Polito.
Mm-hmm. Hi, thank you. Thank you for taking my question here. I know you spoke about El Granada Boulevard. I missed some of that as I was in a prior meeting, but the people that signed that petition, including myself, is mostly for the north or the south side of the boulevard. And on the north side, there's tons of trees that come all the way up to the houses and in between lots as well. At least on the other side of the street, that's already been cleared. That sits back 100 feet as of their last effort to take that fire break in. Now, I realize that Quarry Park has a lot of trees over there, but there is that 100-yard break. We don't have any break on this side here at all. And we're taxed with doing that ourselves. And even at that, I've had the fire department up here to look at these trees several times, and they say they don't tell people to cut their trees down. So even if I cut the trees down in my yard, I have a yard right next to me that has trees that actually overhang onto my yard. And that, I don't
Excuse me,
understand.
Donalyn, just,
Yeah.
are you on El Granada Boulevard, are you talking about the side away from Quarry Park?
Yes, on the other
Yeah.
side of the street.
So that's why in terms of trying to have a walk with Nicholas, the other person I want there is the fire marshal, the Bowie fire marshal, because that's not part of the park. And I think that's an important part of the dialogue that emphasized. So that's I'm trying to address that, but that takes getting both parties together.
Okay, I would really appreciate that because we always get to be ignored because that has the park on the other side, but this is actually more dangerous in my eyes.
Yeah, and so we did at the previous meeting. This is sort of an overall diagram, but then we did gather data both on the medians and your zone as well, and share that. And a lot of it's basically eucalyptus on vacant lots as well, which really does require a fire marshal to make headway on.
Yeah, that's what I say. Well, okay, I'm glad that that's included in part of this. I didn't know that it was as part of that median strip idea. Yeah, okay, great. All right, then I will I will rest a little bit longer.
We'll keep you posted.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Donalyn. I don't see any other public comments and no other hands raised on this topic. So I'm going to close public comment for the wildfire topic. And we're going to go to members of the council. I'm specifically interested in hearing from members of the council what they think the logical next steps are. I mean, wildfire is a big topic. It's something, obviously, it's the most important topic that we're addressing this year. It's been on almost every single meeting that we've had. But I think, sometimes there's so much going on that we're not really clearly planning out what specific things we're going to handle at the upcoming agendas, at upcoming meetings. And I know Lynn proposed some things here. We also have on the July 28th agenda, an item that we're going to be hearing from the group of people in El Granada that worked together to clear a number of eucalyptus trees as part of a project. And I know that the regulations have changed since then, but I think it's still going to be very valuable learnings that we can hear from them on how they did that and what they learned from it. So that'll be on July 28th. As Len mentioned, he wanted an update on the 10-year planning grant on July 28th. We've heard a number of other issues raised tonight. So as we go around the council, it'd be great to hear just an update on what you think the priorities should be in the next several meetings. So I will go around and let's start with Dave, if that's okay.
I mean, I don't think I have anything to say. I think that we have enough going on that other than follow-up, there is no next step required. I mean, everybody thinks they're in the worst possible zone. Clearly, it's not possible for everybody to be in the worst possible zone. But everybody cares about the zone that they live in. That's just human nature. So I think other than follow-up, we don't have any next steps.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'll go to Claire next.
I liked, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was talking about us writing letters of support for grants. I do know that sometimes grants really do want letters of support from community organizations. And I think if somebody, perhaps Lena, can identify which grants those are where we could have some input, I think that's an important thing that we can do. I don't think we should do it on a scattershot basis, but if there are certain grants where we could have an effect, I think that's something we should be prepared to do. We might even have a letter that's like pre-written that we can send, so it's not a big, huge ordeal. The other thing I was thinking as I looked at that map is that it's not all county stuff. the region that we're in, the Midcoast, involves Pacifica and Half Moon Bay as well. So I'm wondering if we can have any synergy of our efforts if we find out what their participation looks like and maybe build something that we're all united on. Those are the two thoughts I had: coordination and having a letter ready to go for grants.
Those are great ideas, Claire. Thank you. And next, let's go to Dan.
Yeah, a couple things actually for both Len and Lena. There is some eucalyptus groves. I did see it was circled on a map. I didn't see a line item on it on Len's report. But the school district has some quite a few, eucalyptus trees in the dense grove by Clipper Ridge, and also up at the top, but also up in Montera, there's areas where at GGNRA property there are thick eucalyptus groves close to homes. I do know that GGNRA did some thinning, and I took a close look at it. It really looked like they didn't do anything. So that was quite a while ago, and I'm wondering if the county can just be in communication with GGNRA and the school district to make sure that they're doing everything possible they can to protect the citizens of the Midcoast in regards to thinning out and just being proactive and making sure that the fire danger is reduced. So, Lena, is there any lines of communication between the county and GGNRA, the school district?
Dan, I've reached out to GGNRA and I've received initial response, but not yet had a satisfactory response yet. But I'm working on that. As far as the schools, I think this is the map I showed. That area you mentioned is highlighted there.
Yeah, thanks, Len. But I was asking Lena.
I am unaware of any communication on either of those particulars, but I will bring it to the supervisor and see if he would direct me to make those points of contact.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next, Jill.
I think I agree with Dave. Following up is very important. And I also wonder if we might compose a letter to Caltrans District 4 about the eucalyptus in the Devil's Slide area. I think that might be productive. Other than that, I follow whatever recommendations Len and his subcommittee have. Thanks.
So I will mention, to take an opportunity to mention to Lena, I did talk to Denise Ania, who composed.
This is your turn. Well, okay, sorry.
What I wanted to highlight to Lena is we would appreciate being able to comment on the draft.
Yes, and I totally, sorry, is it okay if I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
My apologies. I totally understand that request. At this point, we are not going to allow it for a comment period on this letter. However, I will say that Denise Ania is very interested in writing another letter very similar to Caltrans involving local agencies, including cities. And if the MCC would like to be involved in that letter process, that might be an interesting avenue to pursue. And the supervisor has okayed that letter from his perspective.
Okay, thank you, Lena. I'm going to close this out by going to Len and then Greg. Let's go to Len first, and then Greg can wrap it up.
Well, I think the comment that at least two people mentioned was follow up. I mean, and which is what I would say is part of the long game. What I've found in trying to follow up on any of these items is you have to make a very intensive effort to reach people, to have the discussions, and then to take actions from it. It's an involving process. The issue with the letter to Caltrans is sort of a case in point, because we have several conversations with Caltrans on other items and had very particular things we wanted to mention. So and even to write a letter without seeing that other one first doesn't seem like a well-crafted strategy. So, but really it is all of these pieces, and that we've noted that we began to put this on our meetings almost on an every meeting basis, takes focus on particular efforts. And I've realized myself how much time that takes just on my focus, which is a little bit different and narrower than Lena in some ways, but broader in others. So it is, there's the follow-up is being taken, but it's very time consuming.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. And Greg?
So I can think of four things. A letter to Caltrans, and if I heard Lynn right, he would prefer to see what everybody else is writing, as long as we don't wait too long. I mean, I can see writing a letter on the issues we already identified in our issues list about eucalyptus, north of the tunnel, on Highway 1 in several places, etc. Secondly, one of the things that Lynn and Matt Clark of GCSD found when they were out surveying trees was a bunch of vacant lots with a lot of eucalyptus. And the fire code, as I understand it, does not currently give the Coastside Fire Protection District the authority to request those trees be removed because they're technically not weeds, they're still alive, etc. And so I would like to write a letter to the fire board asking for a change to the fire code, allowing the fire board to request removal of eucalyptus and maybe another species. I'll defer to Jill and others who know this better, because those vacant lots are a hazard. That's a second point. A third thing would be the local hazard mitigation plan is coming up. We could wait until we see it, which will be maybe early August, but we should plan for a letter and an agenda item, I think, emphasizing our priorities, which have already been communicated to them, but I don't think we should stop. The Cabrillo school situation was one of the items on that list. So I wrote a little chat message to Dan, but if we can get very specific about, showing a map with the fears we have about fire-prone groves of trees near our school children, I think that would be a useful part of our reply to the local hazard mitigation plan. And the last thing is going to be a little more controversial, but you'll notice my screen background. We've got a drought. I've already asked the Board of Supervisors to suspend all water and sewer connections and anything that develops increased need for water consumption. And there's plenty of evidence I've documented that building in the wildland urban interface is what causes the increased risk to health and safety, and that the fuel for the fire in Paradise, for example, was the homes. So there's potential, and I know that'll be more controversial, we could write a letter related to the drought about the fact that we need to stop all this dense development. So that's four things. I can put that in notes, Michelle. Well, it'll be
I took notes. Yeah, this is great. Thank you. Thanks to everyone for your comments. And, we have a lot of areas, like I said before, but I think this helps kind of put more direction to it. And Greg, Len, and I will continue to work to follow up on the existing topics, to update the wildfire issues list with the new things that were brought up tonight, and to make progress, including multiple topics, it sounds like, at next meeting, and then continuing on until we get everything that we're asking for, which could be quite a long time, but it's obviously very important. So thank you, everyone. Next, we're going to move on to item number 4B, which is a dispute that was brought up to us at the last meeting about some properties on Upper Miramar Drive. A couple of people, Greg and Dave, have been looking into this issue, and they are going to give a report on that tonight. So I'll turn it over to, I believe, Greg.
Yeah, I think Dave is much more expert at the planning and code side of this. So I will just talk through the issues as we've been made aware of them. We may not have every document we would have if this were some kind of a formal investigation. For instance, I don't have copies of all the lawsuits, but I will just try and recap the issues. So both on the March 23rd meeting and the June 23rd meeting, a number of Miramar Drive residents voiced concerns over what seemed to be development activities on a plot APN 048-076-120. And those concerns included an unpermitted fence near a vehicular easement that goes through that plot, potential for piecemealing development of the lot, some unpermitted tree removal, erosion, scenic damage, and hampered access by first responders. So I visited the site. I spoke to the owner of the property, and he has security cameras installed on the site, quite a number of them apparently. And he, in addition, made allegations of vandalism and violence. So the residents had requested advice on how to address having the fence removed, the tree removal halted, and requested that the MCC write county planning for action. They provided a memo from John Riddell of CAL FIRE, who wrote a preference for removal of the fence, but not a requirement to ease the turnaround and access. This lot is right next to a water tank for a CCWD. So here's what I think we found. The issue of access, there's apparently a recent settlement of a lawsuit. And so the owner at 655 Miramar Drive is permitted ingress and egress to his property through the subject lot. The owner's been granted rights to use the lot and keep the fence in place, as well as some surveillance cameras and signs. There is an open issue about the fence that Dave can speak to regarding a coastal development permit. This lawsuit isn't the only issue bearing on it. With respect to tree removal, there's been subsequent investigation of the trees that were cleared. It's unclear whether the tree removals were fully compliant with the requirements for process. After the fact inspection makes it seem likely that no, quote, significant trees were removed. But as you just heard, the issue of eucalyptus removal has been receiving increased attention with respect to public safety, with the desire and the trend toward removing as many of these invasive and fire-prone trees as possible. So apparently the county has no concerns with the removals of those eucalyptus to date. And further eucalyptus removals are likely to be viewed even as a positive development in wildfire risk reduction. You've heard Keith Mangold and others talk about the risk for a crown fire. So our only request with respect to the removal of the trees is that it be done in an intelligent way with retention of chips for retaining soil moisture and possibly the planting or promotion of native vegetation growing. With respect to the issue of scenic loss, this is something that Nick Calderon mentioned at a meeting we had about 8 months ago, that as we remove eucalyptus trees and reduce the risk of a deadly crown fire, there's going to be an aesthetic shock we're all going to experience as we see, for example, Quarry Park substantially denuded. So we acknowledge the residents' concerns about this, but I personally believe removal of these trees is preferable to the retention because of wildfire risks and the health and safety of all the neighboring houses. There was an issue raised on erosion. It appears the stumps of the trees have been retained, and they should be because they'll hold the soil in. We've had expert presenters at MCC meetings state that those roots will retain soil for years until native vegetation can regrow and further secure the soil. So unless there's a study substantiating the risk of erosion, which could be part of a subsequent development project permit request, we currently don't see any evidence of erosion at this time. The issue of piecemealing is one that I would like Dave to speak to, but what I've learned is that the owner does intend to put a house on that lot, and apparently has another lawsuit involved with a different neighbor where he wants to put a road in on a paper street called Hermosa. That street would be wider and straighter and apparently within code for fire and emergency vehicle access, and would be the primary means of accessing any house he places on the property. And apparently he's won a lawsuit giving him access to do that. However, that new road is certainly going to conflict with plans of a related parcel, APN 048076140. So I think what we need to see, because we can't take any position on the merits of those plans or conflicting permit requests, we need to see a request for that development to occur that includes the house and the road access. And at that time, all parties can be heard by the county and the Coastal Commission to make their concerns known and the appropriate decision made. The last issue is the violence and vandalism, and the owner of the lot in questions presented video and oral statements showing vandalism, aggressive actions by drivers on the current easement, and a couple of instances where the owner and his family were nearly struck and injured by drivers on his property. There's also allegations that there have been misrepresentation of facts. There are photos of vehicles with their license plates masked to hide the registration. There's been vandalism of security cameras and allegedly a criminal lawsuit where one party was jailed for that vandalism. So in conclusion, this is a neighborhood dispute of some magnitude, and legal and related costs are purportedly running into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the potential for bodily injury. Now, at present, and Dave can also speak to this, as far as I know, the county has found no actionable violations by the owner, though his actions have clearly upset nearby residents. So what I can see the MCC doing is encouraging the owner and the county to complete the pending permit requests and the owner to file a more comprehensive request so that with full community input, we can make a decision on his development plans. So Dave, do you want to add your thoughts to this?
I think that's an excellent summary of the situation. For those who are asking in chat, I did put the address of the vicinity of the properties we're discussing about in the chat. There have been a number of violations filed on properties in this area in the last few years before the current owner of the undeveloped parcel purchased it and after. And I really have to agree with Greg. This looks very much to me like a bad neighbor problem. I'm not saying who's at fault, whether everybody's at fault, nobody's at fault, but it is clearly a neighborhood dispute. I will say in reply to some of the comments about the fence creating a danger of trucks not being able to turn around, that I've been up at this property quite a few times long before any of this happened, 8-9 years ago. And water department trucks and other big trucks were backing down then too, before the fence was built. And I think that's a choice they've made. There's actually room to turn around anything up to the size of a decent sized dump truck up there. I actually turned around right in front of the water tank just to be sure. So it's to me a non sequitur. I do agree with Greg that long-term the easement through the undeveloped parcel is going to be problematic, and the earlier lawsuits on alternate routes in are probably the best answer. But we can't dictate that any of the owners in that area implement that. That's up to them. And I would hope without more lawsuits, but, you know, I have had close friends involved with property disputes, and they do go on for years. They get, they pull the whole neighborhood into them. They're expensive. And I do hope people are able to settle this in mediation or by other means. I also want to say that for the first time ever in the history of the Midcoast Community Council, as best as I or Lisa Ketchum can determine, this whole issue has been subject of the PRA Public Records Act requests. And I've actually dispersed a number of documents to the requester, and the requester has made an additional follow-up request, which I will also be supplying. Sort of surprising to me, but that's the way it goes. It has been interesting to discover what it actually means to satisfy a PRA request. In the case of the fence, which is the only open violation, only violation that is still open to the best of my knowledge, looking up all the APNs of the area, it would have been closed by the county, except that it required a CDP to legalize it. And the property owner, the undeveloped property, has filed the plans to do that. It has been open for 15 months now, and the county has not completed it. I don't know why. That information is not in the public database. But given that, I see no issues here. I do agree with Greg. I see no signs of likely erosion in that area. It is a steep slope. We had previously, as a planning subcommittee of the MCC, looked at ADUs on the property at 655 Miramar and others, and had commented that they seemed a little bit risky, but they're within the law, they're within the zoning ordinance. The county cannot just turn those down unless they have a very solid reason. Otherwise, it constitutes a taking, and they'll wind up in court, and the property owner will, in 99.5% of those cases at least, win those suits. So I very much feel the MCC should not inject itself further into this situation. We should remain open to further information. There's always possibility we're missing something, but at this point, I don't think we should do anything. And I'm happy to answer questions. I'm sure Ray is too.
Thank you both for that report on the issue and for spending the time looking into it. If any other members of the council have a question, you can ask it now. Otherwise, we will go to members of the public for comment. Okay, I don't see any other member. Oh, Claire, go ahead.
I know the county has a mediation team or a conflict resolution team, I guess that's what it is. I don't know, is that ever used in situations like this, or are the parties interested in using something like that?
I would suspect it would be appropriate to use it. I don't know if the parties are interested.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to members of the public. So I'm going to go in the order of the hands that were raised, and we'll start with Ann Martin. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thanks, Greg and Dave, for investigating this. And yeah, it has been an issue, but none of us who commented at the last meeting about the fence were ever parties to any kind of a lawsuit or anything like that. Frankly, it was only in May that we found out about the fire marshal stating that this fence could make it very difficult, if not nearly impossible, for a fire truck to go up to the residence at 655 Miramar, which we felt in turn could endanger us who live, just below that area on the hill. And I might add that this is all an extreme high wildfire hazard zone. We do agree with the removal of eucalyptus. We again just want to, as you all mentioned, want to ensure that the proper erosion and revegetation measures are put in place. Just to update you really quickly, I don't know if you, Dave and Greg, were aware of this. Actually, the county did issue a notice violation on July 8th to the property owner about this illegal fence and a letter. So they need to rectify the open violation by August 9th. Our concern is that if you look at the history of this, there has been 4 years of delay, requests for CDXs, denial of CDXs, requests for reconsideration. And in this instance, in the most dangerous wildfire season that we've seen in a long time, where we're talking about fire department access held up by an illegal fence, I don't think there's time for delay here. So what I would ask the MCC is that you support us in just monitoring this fence violation and urge the county not to delay enforcement of it. And I thank you again for your time in looking at this.
So Anne, the owner has filed a planning permit to legalize the fence.
Good, thank you.
County's court.
Thank you, Dave. I'm glad.
It's not to remove it, it's to legalize it.
I'm aware of that, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anne, for those comments. Next, we'll go to Sid Young.
Thank you. I was just following up because I understand that property owner has been very aggressively removing all the vegetation on the median. And, you guys are getting the whole county involved in getting the medians in El Granada have vegetation and fuel load reduction. This guy just came in and did it over all the objection of the neighbors who, according to the county, the county does not control that median. So, the guy is rather aggressive about how he goes about doing things. And before they passed the ordinance to allow no holds barred reduction of eucalyptus, he was going to clear cut all the eucalyptus on that hillside. So I kind of am sympathetic to the property owners in that area because of the hostile and aggressive stance of this particular property owner who wants it his way and doesn't care what anybody else wants. He's not amenable to negotiating or, making an agreed upon settlement that's, which we say good for everyone or make everybody happy. But I'm mostly again concerned about the fire truck turnaround issue on that street and the fact that there is one uphill neighbor that really can't get very good access from the fire department should his house catch fire. And I think that's an important fact to consider. I don't know if you guys talked with CAL FIRE about it. So maybe Greg or Dave could bring that up. Thanks.
So Carlisle, Ann, the property is not a median, it is private property and it's owned by the person that cut the trees. And those trees were well below, I looked at every one of the stumps, they were well below the size that would require a permit to cut.
The median was not his property.
Carlisle, Ann, it's not a median, it's private property.
Okay.
I checked that very, very carefully. And as far as one of the CAL FIRE marshals saying the fire trucks couldn't get up there with the fence, fire trucks go through fences much bigger than that all the time when they need to. And quite honestly, I do not see that as a fire safety issue.
Okay, thank you.
The battalion chief said, or not, excuse me, the fire marshal said, but it is a matter of opinion on both his side and mine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll go to Matt Show.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just a couple of comments. Our concerns, and again, no one that spoke last time are party to any of these lawsuits. Our concerns were verification of erosion control. I think we can all agree that that has now been met to our satisfaction. And the trees that were being cleared were in fact on the property owned by the lot owner. There was a little bit of confusion as to whether that was the case. Now, Greg had mentioned that there were lots of cameras on this lot. At one point, there was up to 20 cameras on this lot. And the property owner was issued a restraining order by a court in good standing in this county based on harassment of a neighbor because of the cameras. This neighbor is not on this call and has not yet spoken on this issue. And several of us downstream of these cameras were concerned that our entire field of view as far as the trees blocking our house from these cameras were going to be clear cut. So that was our two primary concerns, the erosion and the loss of privacy, given the harassing behavior that was enough for a court to issue a restraining order against the property owner. So that's pretty rare. I'm a lawyer. That's pretty rare in this state where the egregiousness of the violation for a court to issue a restraining order from one lot to the neighboring lot's owner. That's kind of a rare thing. And so that's just to summarize why we were concerned about the trees. We are for the removal of problematic eucalyptus, but there are other issues dealing with this lot and this lot owner that made us concerned for privacy issues. And with that, I will take my comments off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'll go to Carrie Blanton.
Yes, this is Paul and Carrie Blanton. We are actually the homeowners of 655 Miramar. And, I appreciate the MCC's comments and perspective, particularly with regards of, clear-cut eucalyptus. No disagreement that those are problematic. We were primarily concerned with erosion and the fact that, the permit that was submitted for the clear cutting of eucalyptus trees completely ignored the 10 dead trees that the property owner had on their property. So our view kind of from the beginning was that we support the removal of hazardous eucalyptus trees, but the permit to remove those trees was a smokescreen, because if they were truly doing it to reduce the fire hazard, they would have addressed the dead trees on the property. So that's one issue. The second, the clear cutting of the portion of Miramar Drive that belongs to the property owner. I think as a neighborhood, we just didn't appreciate the way that they conduct business. And the way they conduct business is through the constant surveillance of the neighbors, which has resulted in a restraining order. They've violated that restraining order and have criminal charges pressed against them right we the way they just have gone about our business. As the owners of 655 Miramar, we purchased the property about 6 months ago, and we're not privy to the initial lawsuit, which was focused around the ability to develop this piece of property, 655 Miramar, above the belligerent property owners who are below us. We are not developing this property. We are living in the existing home, which has been here since the early 80s. Since the early 80s, the original owner had a road that went up to the water district that the water district used, and then it came up to our house. That has been there since this property was, since this house was built 30, 40 years ago. What the property owner in question has done is basically denied the access of that road by the building of an illegal fence, which has been an open violation for 4 years. We view that that fence is only to limit our access to our home, the response of first responders to our home, and enable them to build a new road through our neighbor's property that so they can maximize their buildable space. There is, having lived here for 6 months, there is no greater community good motive in what they are doing. This is a calculated financial, commercial decision that puts our neighborhood at risk, and particularly my family. So I appreciate the MCC's comments, but I believe that their perspective is not complete. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. And next I'll go to Genevieve Wartzman-Show.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I have with me Brad Lucas. He's going to be speaking.
Yeah, so I own property 140, the disputed property, which I own. The neighbors that are being spoke of have come on my property and illegally cut trees. They've harassed my family. It's resulted in a restraining order, and now it's actually going to criminal. The eucalyptus issue, I understand. I don't have an issue with that. What I do have an issue with is that the illegal fence is there. It is preventing fire trucks from coming up and helping our neighbors, and also helping us, and also the county's involvement in resolving this issue. This has been a systematic level of harassment and abuse. And it's been going on for years, not just with me, but with the previous owner. And the cameras, 15 to 21 cameras, of which another person that spoke on this call had access to, has also been involved in this. So as we look at this, we have to take the larger picture into view. And that is, we have to look at what's going on with this hill, the abuse, the harassment, and everything that comes with that. I have a child with disabilities who's been harassed, who's been abused, and there's been consequences as a result of that we've had to deal with. So when you look at this situation, you have to look at broader at the eucalyptus, which we're fine with, but look at the broader situation around the fence, which creates a massive hazard, has been called out about CAL FIRE to our neighbors, as well as ourselves. Thank you.
Excuse me, your name did not come across Zoom very well.
My name is Brad Lucas.
Could you again type it into chat, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brad, for that comment. Do we have any other comments from members of the public on this topic? Okay, it doesn't look like it. So we'll close public comment on this topic. It seems like the recommendation from the team that looked into this, Dave and Greg, is to not take any additional action at this time. And I just want to go around to the rest of the council and see if anyone has any comments, thoughts on this, disagreement with that, or support of that proposed action. And so I will go around, beginning with Len.
I don't have any further comments.
Okay, thank you. Jill?
I also don't have any further comments.
Okay, Dan?
No comments.
Okay, Claire?
I would like to say that I very much appreciate the people in the community bringing this to our attention and their trust in us, knowing that we have no authority, but we are always wanting to hear what people are dealing with. I also appreciate Dave and Greg going into this as thoroughly as they did, and coming to similar conclusions, even though I think they may have started out at different places. So I was happy to see the MCC being willing to engage in something like this and being so objective, and hopefully we've contributed what we could.
Thank you, Claire. Next, I'll go back to Greg and Dave for any additional comments.
I don't have many additional comments.
Okay.
The only comment I have is, as in any dispute, it's easy to form opinions when you only hear one side. So if this was to go any further, I think we would need to hear from both sides. And I don't know if the other party is even interested in that. At least that is my opinion. So I'll let it go at that.
Dave, this is Dick Martin. Can you hear me?
Oh, Dick, you're not, it's not time for the public to speak. You missed public comment.
Well, I had trouble getting my to turn on. My disappointment is you didn't really interview the rest of us to get the other starting. But that's
Dick, if you would like to speak for, if you missed public comment, I can reopen that just for you to speak. But you can't respond directly to council members. But I will, I will let you speak right now for up to 3 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, I had trouble. I was watching the whole time and I couldn't get it to come on to make the.
No problem. Okay,
so
go
I was
ahead.
Just saying, I thought the report you gave was interesting. I was disappointed that you only took one side of the story. No, we've talked a lot on the other last meeting, but to sit down and let us tell you what was going on as well. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Dick, for that comment.
One side of the story. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I will just close this out. So we've had an opportunity to hear from everyone on this. I really want to echo what Claire said in terms of, it's a great effort from Greg and Dave to look into this dispute, to research both sides of it, to, look into the background. I think going forward, there is not an appropriate action for us to take right now. However, if any additional planning referrals come up, we did comment on a planning referral several months ago on the tree removal. If anything does come up, it will come to the MCC and we'll have an opportunity to comment at that time. But as of now, let's close this out and we will not take any additional action. Okay, we're going to move on. We have one more regular agenda item and then 2 items from the consent agenda, the Treasurer's Report and the Brown Act. Let's do the Treasurer's Report right now because it will lead into item 4C, which is the MCC website upgrade, and then we'll do the Brown Act letter last. So I'm going to hand it over to Lynn for the Treasurer's Report.
Thank you. I'm going to show the Treasurer's Report here. I think that should be showing on the screen now. Basically, I would have expected that the Treasurer's Report itself would have been on the consent agenda, but because we have not received the bank's statement for the final transactions that occurred in June and can't make the report complete, I decided I just wanted to inform the council of the overall status. So I'm showing on the screen the status of our account as of the fiscal year end, $9,473. And then pointing out that each year at the beginning of the fiscal year, we receive a $3,000 stipend from the county for our expenses. So that means in 21, we would receive another $3,000. And then in 22, another 3,000. So during the course of the next 2 years, the rest of 21 and 22, our treasury will receive money that would take it up to about $15,000. And that's as a background basis to discuss looking at upgrades to our website. So this is for the information in that, and you can expect at the next meeting that the Treasurer's Report in full form will be on the consent agenda. And if there are any questions about just the money itself, we can take those questions now.
I have 2 questions, Lynn. Question 1 is, even though we haven't received the end of the June monthly statement, do you expect, I'm assuming you have online, online access. Do you expect any additional transactions to occur?
No.
that have occurred?
No.
Okay, and then question 2 is about the annual payment. I believe we usually receive that toward the beginning of the year, and I see on here that we have the in March received 3,000. Is that for fiscal year 2020 that ends in June 2021?
That was, yes, for the fiscal year that ended in 2021. We actually put in the filing for that late. Normally that would have been received actually during the latter part of 2020.
Okay, so you're expecting that we would receive this year, fiscal year 2021 to 22's $3,000 payment later on in 2021?
That's correct.
Okay. Dave, we'll go to Dave. Has his hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to point out that while our expenses are not typically very high, the 15,000 should probably have, between 500 and 1,000 dropped off just for normal expenses over the next couple of years.
Understood.
Thank you, Dave. And then Claire?
Claire,
you're on mute. Sorry, start over.
Yeah, point of information. Are you relying on the internet to get bank statements at this point?
No, we have to have printed statements, and so we should be receiving them. There was some gap in there, but they provided a full complement, and we should be being delivered to our post office box.
Well, that's why I'm asking. My understanding prior to you taking this position was that we were going to set it up so that all of the statements would come electronically, and that we wouldn't really need the paper statements anymore, which is especially an issue since we're not meeting in person. And so I just wanted to make sure, because I have not been passing them on to you because I thought you were getting them electronically. So I just wanted to know where that stood.
I'll follow up on that. I wasn't aware of that plan. I know, so I'll get back to you.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, given that it looks like we have to have this on for a third time at the next meeting, hopefully no one else will have any additional questions on this topic. I'm not even going to take the time to go around to other members of the council, and we're not going to have a vote this time. We'll just include it as part of next meeting's consent agenda.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Let's then, as I don't see any other hands raised, so we're going to close up this item and move on to item 4C, which is the MCC website upgrade.
Okay. So I have put out a set of slides on that, and I will bring those up on my screen now. Okay, so basically just a few points on our website and the considerations for upgrading it. So basically we have here, the background is our current website was established in 2012 and has been operating as an excellent source of content under the direction of Lisa Ketchum, our web mistress. And basically, when this was done in 2012, an ad hoc committee was established to oversee a project to upgrade the website, which resulted in the current website we have. Currently, the engine of our website is an obsolete Squarespace version. And from a technical standpoint, it has not provided a migration path forward that's adequate. So it's time to consider an upgrade from a technical perspective, but also just to look at the website itself, its form, its function, et cetera. At the beginning of our calendar year, we had a website design review committee. That was Michelle, Greg, and myself. I think Lisa should be a member of that committee. But more importantly, I'm going to withdraw from that committee. As I mentioned earlier, the work on wildfire, just if you're trying to do it at all seriously as a member of the advisory council to the Fire Safe Council is a major time effort. So I was just going to look to withdraw. I do suggest, though, we want to have a goal of a new website in place by the end of 2022. Looking at the treasurer's account, it seems perfectly reasonable to assume we would have at least on the order of $9,000 to devote to that effort. There's a cushion there. And basically, the step should be to establish an actual ad hoc committee for implementation of the new website. So they're putting that forward for information, which could, and basically, if you take the suggestion of a somewhat revised website design review committee, they would be the people to bring forward a particular plan or action motions to create an ad hoc committee to actually upgrade the website. So that's all I wanted to put forward before the council.
Okay, thank you, Len, for that. If any members of the council have any clarifying questions, please go ahead now. Okay, let's start with Dave.
Well, it's not so much a clarifying question, but I'll get it out of the way. I unfortunately have no time to devote to this. I have an interest in the results, but I have no time to devote to it.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that. Next, I'll go to Dan.
Yeah, we have some money in our account. I'm not sure the best way to handle this, but I'm not an expert on websites. One thing that I am concerned with is, Lisa has done such a excellent job. There's a lot of information on the existing website. I just want to make certain that we're all in agreement that before the old website is closed down, everybody's okay with all the information transferred over seamlessly, before anything is lost on the existing website when we do make a change. So again, I'm not the expert, but just putting it out there. Maybe. Can the work be hired?
Yeah, it's expected that we would be hiring someone to work on requirements and design, and the implementation does need to involve a migration of the content. So those are things that need to be considered in bringing a proposal forward.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Next, I'll go to Greg.
So this is supposed to be questions, not comments, right?
Yeah, we'll make comments later on.
Okay, so my question is, can somebody be specific about the timeline of the risk we face with the fact that Squarespace is apparently not supported? The version we have is not supported. So what's the nature of the risk and what's the time frame we have this risk exposure for? What has to happen before something breaks?
I don't have any perspectives on that currently. Do you, Dave?
The risk is minimal in that they do actually still answer questions. The problem is that ultimately they're not going to be doing security upgrades and fixes. I've been through this with other websites. The real risk is that at some point something breaks and you are forced to upgrade right now or have the website or part of the website go down permanently until you upgrade.
Okay. Greg, does that answer your question? Okay, and then Jill?
I really like our website now, and I really like the information. My question is, what do you envision for the new website? Is it going to be the same website, just a new platform? or a whole new, look? What are you thinking of?
Oh, I'm not. All this is doing is putting together a committee that would review that and bring a project forward, rather than just review, to actually be part of a design review leading to an implementation. But there's no particular design statements being made here.
And Lisa Ketchum's on that subcommittee?
That was the point I made here, to have her on it. Yes.
Thanks, Lynn.
I'm going to ask a question right now. Lynn, have you been in contact with Lisa about that?
I have. I've done it when in a more general form, but yes, she's available.
Okay. I'll go to Claire next.
I just had a question based on what Dave just said. I think you said that if it goes down, then it can't be fixed until we update our system. Is that what you said?
There is a risk of that, and the risk obviously can't be determined because in the language of software, it's an unknown unknown.
There you go.
Okay. But if it went down, is there a possibility we would lose everything forever?
Yes, because the data is stored in a database format that cannot be easily exported. And that is part of the problem with the upgrade. I have taken a full backup of the website. It's probably 18 months now. And I'm not saying that you couldn't hire a consultant to somehow figure out how to migrate the data. But typically so this website is now 4 versions or maybe 5 versions out of date. It is extremely difficult to migrate websites that are that out of date. 2 versions is hard. 3 is really hard. 5 is extremely difficult, and we may very well just choose to somehow scrape all the data off the website and re-import it. That may be the only possible answer.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, looks like that's it for questions from the council. We're going to go to public comment now, and Sid has her hand raised. Go ahead, Sid.
Basically, I just want to say that it's such an awesome resource. I really want to echo what Dan and others had said about trying to keep all the information, even if you have to reformat it somehow. I'd hate to see that go down or be lost, because Lisa did put in a lot of work, and I know Dave's kept it up. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Sid. Okay, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to speak for a minute. I give my opinion first, and then I'm going to go around to other members of the council, just because I've been involved in a lot of projects as a product manager to build websites, never a migration, especially one from something this old. So I somewhat understand the complexities, although I think it's going to be probably even more difficult than we're imagining at this point in time. But in terms of a path forward, I do think that I support Lynn's request that we need to put together a committee of people, including three of us on the council, ideally plus Lisa. But I think the first step is to define what the product requirements are going to be of this new website. We've heard a few things here tonight. We want to preserve and migrate all the existing files. We probably want to have, the ability to post our meetings and collect email addresses and do blog posts the same way that we do currently. Well, not the same way, but like to have the content there. And so I think that in terms of timeline, we need a group of us, and then we would put together a proposed product requirement and then bring that to the council for more discussion and to the community to get feedback before moving forward on identifying and then hiring a consultant. I think there's more work to be figured out, more work to be done right now to figure out exactly what we would want that consultant to do, especially considering our budget may sound like a lot of money, $9,000 or up to even $15,000. I worry that that's not going to be enough to do what we need to do without significant effort and heavy lifting from those of us on the council. So I'll stop there and then I'll let other members of the council speak. And I'll start with Dave.
I will drill down even more on what Michelle just said. The last website that I was part of that did a major upgrade went through, it jumped forward 3 versions, was budgeted for $5,000, and by the time it was functional and for a while part of the whole payment subsystem that provided the whole budget was down for almost 6 months. It ran to $8,000 or $9,000. That was from one WordPerfect version to another with no structural changes. That was just moving the data, finding the problems, and fixing them. So even if we I should also point out for those who don't know, current versions of Squarespace are completely and utterly different than the one we're running on. So there's no inherent advantage in staying with Squarespace, except that there are a registrar for the domain, which can be easily addressed. The 2 main things that people use are Squarespace and WordPerfect. Squarespace is much more oriented these days towards people doing online selling. Even back when our website was put together, that was one of their main focuses. It's almost exclusively their focus now. I maintain another website, the history website, on WordPerfect, and I can't say that I think WordPerfect is the greatest web tool in existence. But
you mean WordPress, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Showing my age. Everybody ignore what I just said.
I remember that old tool, WordPerfect, but WordPress, the website builder.
Yes, I never wrote HTML in WordPerfect, thank God. Yes, WordPress, thank you. But there are others out there. None of them are oriented towards the kinds of things that we do. Our website does 2 main things. It accumulates announcements of agendas and things of interest to the community. And it is a huge archive of documents. Most of those documents, I would say 95% of them, do not need to be on a website. In fact, they shouldn't be on a website. They need to be accessible through the website. They need to be searched for through the website, but they do not have any business being on a website. They're there, and because that's what we had. And Lisa did a huge service to the community in going through boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of documents and scanning them and sorting them and categorizing them and everything else. I am not in any way complaining about the choices she made. I'm just saying, if we're doing a new website, don't make the documents the driving factor. Make simplicity of maintenance and upgrades the driving factor, and figure out how to access the documents from some other document store, be it Dropbox, Google Drive, I don't care. So I just wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say that $15,000 is probably not enough.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I'm going to continue on around the council. I'll go to Greg next.
Well, for better or worse, some of you know I've worked with WordPress to help maintain a couple of websites, publish articles. And my background includes working with systems a lot larger than this, and budgets in the millions, not this. So exactly how relevant I am remains to be seen. But I'm afraid, because Len and Dave aren't going to be involved, I might have to raise my hand. I agree with the comment that we need to do a list of requirements et cetera, just like Michelle was saying. The only thing I would contribute to that is, and it overlaps the Brown Act discussion, the one piece of functionality we're not able to support, and it slows the entire council down, is our ability to see drafts of work, comment on drafts of work, and advance letters. Right now, it's a Brown Act violation to do that in public. And so I would actually like to see the Brown Act change so that we could post for the benefit of the community stuff as we work on it, see each other's comments, all being done in public. But until the law changes, I can't nominate that functionality. But I'm hoping we will get the law changed so that we can collaborate in public and at speed approving letters at the meetings where we won't have to be editing each other in real time. Did everybody understand what I'm saying? Functionality to see?
Yes. Yeah, I think that may be outside of the scope of this website upgrade because it's more of a Brown Act consideration, but I hear what you're saying. I'll go to Dan next.
Yeah, question for Dave. Do you believe that under any circumstances of which direction of action we take, $15,000 would not be enough?
If we just let the website fail and somehow retrieve all the documents before they fail and then maybe index them later, yeah, we could do it for a lot less than 15,000. I don't think that's a viable choice. Or if we could get volunteer labor to do what Lisa probably put, I'm just guessing, I have no idea how much time she put into it, 1,000 hours. That is half a work year, full time. If we had a volunteer to pull all of those documents off and index them, then yeah, a new website that wasn't serving as our document store probably could be done for less than 15,000 because you'd start from scratch with a small WordPress or equivalent website, and you're probably talking, at most a couple $1,000. But it's that 1,000 hours or whatever of volunteer time, which I don't think we're going to get. I would be astounded if Lisa was willing to do it again.
But I think you said earlier that you had a backup, essentially a real-time copy of the website that could be, everything could be traced at least as a checklist of, okay, we got this document, we got this document, we got this document.
If you have another Squarespace for website to import it into, yes.
Okay.
But the problem is we won't.
So you're saying there's no way to do a real backup or call it a copy, copying pages, or
because of the way Squarespace works, you can't really just do what's called recursive crawling of the website and get all the documents.
There'd be a lot of screenshots, wouldn't it?
That would be 5 years of screenshotting.
I guess that's not an option. All right. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Yes. Let's see. We haven't heard from Jill or Claire, I believe, for final comments.
I like the idea of reaching out to the community to see if there are, I wouldn't say volunteers, but experts out there in the Midcoast that might give us a discounted rate, because we have a lot of people that work remotely in this area. I'm sure we have a lot of web designers too.
Thank you. Claire, do you have anything else to add?
I agree with Jill. I probably know less about any of this than anybody. We do have some talent on the council, but I think that there may be community members that could give us a lot of help.
Okay, thank you. So, agreed. In terms of next steps, it sounds like, so initially at the beginning of the year, it was me, Greg and Len who are going to be working on this project. At the retreat, we decided that Len needs to drop off. So I think that leaves myself and Greg. Now I want to put this out there. I think we need Dave at least as part of the initial discussions to help frame the idea, because he knows the most about what, you've enlightened us already so much tonight. Doesn't mean that you would need to see this project all the way through to completion, but at least in terms of framing what the needs are and what the requirements are going to be going forward. Would you be willing to take part in that?
Sure, I can be part of the initial discussions, no problem at all.
Okay.
And if you want to make it a committee of 3 with at some point me being replaced by somebody else, that's fine with me.
Okay. And Greg, are you willing to
participate? I just can't take it through to the full design stage.
Understood. Okay. So let's do that. Let's the 3 of us have some, meetings. We'll pull Lisa in as well and plan on putting together a rough timeline. It's probably not going to be in the next couple meetings, but then in like 1 to 2 months, come back to the council with a proposed timeline and a proposed list of requirements that we can then have a deeper discussion on with the council. Okay, great. And thanks, Len, for bringing this to our attention and relating it to the budget issue as well.
Not that I think anybody really wants to be on that committee instead of the 3 people you named, Michelle, but I just want to make absolutely sure of that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else really want to be on that committee? Okay, I don't think we need a vote. I just wanted to confirm.
Right, good point. Yep. Okay, let's close out this issue. And then the last item that we'll include on the regular agenda is the letter on the Brown Act.
Could I add just something real quick to follow up?
Yes.
I think that we can have 3 people on a committee, and then we could have a discussion at a meeting, and we could divvy out maybe tasks to other.
Let's let Dan finish, and you can speak, Lynn.
Yeah, to different MCC members that may have time to help, so that it's not limited to only 3 people that can do all of the work. I'm just saying that I think that there's a possibility that we could spread it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. If there's just some tedious tasks that like we all need to contribute, we don't need to talk to each other to do it. We just kind of put together a training document, and this is what needs to be done. Everyone needs to put in like 5 hours of work or something like that. Then I think you're right. We could include, it could be more than the 3 of us that work on that. We just won't be at that phase until at least, we figure out exactly what we need. So it's a great point.
Just want to put the spirit out. I want to do my part.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then Len?
So, well, in anticipation of this coming up, I've had more than one conversation with Tim Fox. I believe there's actually more flexibility for participation by council members than we are inferring by this conversation. So I suggest you take it up with Tim, but really it's an activity completely different than our policy activities.
Good point. Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else before I close this item? Okay. Moving on to the letter that was originally part of the consent agenda that's been moved to the regular agenda. This is a letter that Claire and Greg wrote as a response to our discussion last time about the return to in-person meetings, which is currently slated for the beginning of October. Claire and Greg, do you want to give an update? Or actually, Dan, you're the one that wanted to put this on. Why don't you go ahead and speak first?
I can say that I read the letter, and in the spirit of time, I'd like to make a motion to have the letter approved.
Okay, do we have a second? Thank you. All right. Does anyone want to make a comment before we move to a vote?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, go ahead, Claire.
I am disappointed that despite the fact that we made a real effort to get everybody to read this before the meeting, it didn't happen. And if we're going to be able to do things efficiently, I would really hope that people will make an effort to read things that are brought to their attention.
Yeah, sorry, Claire. I acknowledge that I did not read it ahead of time. Just one of the things that was missed.
Okay, we can leave it at that. Let's move to a vote. Dave, please call the roll.
All right, Claire,
Yes.
Len,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and I'm yes, so it passes 7-0.
Okay, great. That letter passes, and I will send it tomorrow. I have to figure out the addresses for the governor, and I think that the state senator and assembly people will be easy enough, but we'll try to get that to the governor too.
Yeah, I think the senators and assemblymen are on our website. If not, they're in the review every week.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, let's move on to council activity. Who wants to start?
I have one quick thing. Go ahead, Lynn.
Okay.
Claire noted to the council that there's activity at the crossing of Virginia. I talked to the engineer involved, and they thought they were on the fast track to finish it up, but they're missing one critical component that's not available in the supply chain. So there's continuing delay. I don't have a date. I don't think it's long time, but not immediate.
Claire, go ahead. I know you brought that up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Len, because they were originally going to put the little flashers there so that it was visible, and I think that's what they were waiting for PG&E.
It's a support piece of pole they're missing.
A support piece of a pole for what? For the flasher things?
It holds it. It's a technical component.
Okay.
It not only holds it up, it transmits electricity, et cetera. So.
Okay, because I've gone by there like I think 3 times in the last week or so. Somebody's been standing there waiting to cross the street, and they can't. It's worse than ever because there's no notification that this thing is coming up. It's that.
I suggest we ask
at all. Put those flashes back up the way they were.
Okay.
The flashing signs like crosswalk coming up. The big signs until I can get the little ones.
Okay.
Because you can't slow down soon enough to let the people cross because you can't see they're there. That would be great.
Yeah, I will add to that because I waited there for about 5 minutes trying to cross to get to the playground and just gave up and turned around because it was just not safe with, my baby. So that was a couple of days ago, and Claire's right. Without the temporary signs there, it's nearly impossible. And that was on like a Monday afternoon. So it wasn't even the weekend, which would be just never, there would never be a break. Thank you. Okay. Let's go to Dave next.
Okay. This is a follow-up to hybrid meetings. I've been in contact with Jason Francisco at PCTV, and they are definitely planning for hybrid meetings. They would have in-person cameramen, they would have microphones. They are planning to have feeds into Zoom from their video cameras. So that removes quite a bit of complexity from the physical part of it. We wouldn't need to get any more microphones. We wouldn't need to get a webcam. We'd still just need a monitor so that we can see people that are on Zoom. We might still want a laptop for presentations, or we can just continue with the old style of videoing the screen, the projector screen. They still haven't had their first hybrid meeting. That'll happen next week. So when we get to the agenda, I'd like that on the next agenda.
On the July 28th agenda?
Yeah, just so I can report out.
Okay. Okay. I will note, and it also is relevant to the letter that we wrote, that I did talk to Tim Fox about this. And his comment was that while the executive order, the current executive order is scheduled to expire on September 30th, that doesn't necessarily mean that in-person meetings will be required after that date. He thinks it's more of a signal that the governor will release a new executive order. That's obviously, something TBD. There's not a clear indication of what will happen. Potentially our letter and probably all of the other feedback that is coming in from various committees will make a difference. And it could be that the state legislature will act to amend the Brown Act, or that the governor will create a new executive order. But I think it's still very much TBD whether we will be required to participate in person, or allow people at our house, as Dave mentioned last time, to beyond September 30th. So I guess all that to say that I think we have more time, and David and I can discuss offline, depending on the other items that we want to try to get to on July 28th, whether we need that as an agenda item that date or potentially in the future. Okay, next, Claire, you had your hand raised. Was that for the Caltrans comment or? Yeah, just that. Okay, Greg?
Some of you are aware that I spoke at the Board of Supervisors and I've written an article requesting a moratorium on all new water connections because of the drought. On a related matter, I've also written the Board of Montero Water and Sanitary District, this is as an individual, not as a member of the council, asking for a special evaluation of their water and sewer revenues and rates because of the drought. You may or may not be aware that when people conserve, they lose revenue, but they don't lose capital expenses. In addition, the cost of maintaining the sewers actually goes up when the flow is lower. They're harder to clean. The collection frequency has to increase. And then finally, I want you to know from the SAM board meetings, they are having repeated sewer treatment issues at the plant. They're in the process of a special study. It's the third wave of the problems they've been dealing with since the high biological oxygen demand last fall. There's a video on July 1st at the Montero Water and Sanitary District meeting. You can watch the video of the SAM meeting on July 12th. And there's a 5-minute excerpt of one of those meetings in an article Michelle Dragety ran on Coastside Buzz that I can put into the chat. And then there's staff notes from Montero Water and Sanitary District. I mention this because it has the potential to be important. Sewer system having trouble. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Sid, I see you have your hand raised, but there's not an opportunity for public comment during this period. So please, you can
put it in the chat. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for that. Okay, and then I wanted to make just an update on the newsletter. We had to make some edits to some of the newsletter articles, and I know that the fire article was late. I'll take part of the blame on that one this time too. So the newsletter is ready to be sent to translation, and I will do that by tomorrow. And hopefully it'll take less than a week to get back. So we'll plan on sending that out on or about July 21st. Okay, any other council activity? And then we'll move on to future agendas. So on July 28th, as I mentioned earlier, we have the learnings from that planning permit on eucalyptus removal. Other wildfire topics, maybe specifically that planning grant. Dave mentioned possibly the hybrid meeting topic. Len or anyone else have any additional requests?
Nicholas Calderon indicated he wants to come to the council in early September, primarily with a proposal for additional parking at Quarry Park. So just wanted to alert us to that.
Okay. Greg?
So you've heard me say at some point, we ought to be talking about the drought. We might want to have the water agencies come and explain their urban water management plans, which show cutbacks above 50%. There's also still an issue hanging fire regarding the fire station and the future consideration. Maybe we want to write a letter that there should be a coastal design review on all projects, not just the ones that are residential. I don't know what the council thinks about Half Moon Bay's reply to our letter about the lawsuit, but I found it markedly inaccurate. I would certainly like to reply. And then the idea of a letter to the fire board regarding a change in the fire code to remove eucalyptus on vacant lots is another thing we could do. And I think we already talked about a letter to Caltrans, and at some future date in August, possibly a letter on the local hazard mitigation plan. I'll put that into the chat so you can see all those topics.
So Greg, we've already written a letter requesting that non-residential projects go to review the same as residential. We did that last year.
Okay. If anyone else,
we could do a new one.
Right. If anyone else wants to partner up with Greg on any of those topics, you can state it now or reach out to him directly, and then Greg can come to me with which one or more than one he would like to pursue, or what the priority would be. Okay.
I'll reach out to Greg.
Okay. On which, just so I know which topic.
Do I have to identify now? Well, unless there's other people that want it, I'm just going to talk some of the things through with him, and then we'll decide from there what to actually bring to the council.
Okay, you can go ahead and do that. I will say that there are a couple items on this list that I don't really have much of a desire to revisit, but I'll leave it at that. Okay. Anything else for future agendas?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, 9:25. Look at us. This is the earliest we've had that motion in quite a long time. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay.
Can
Dave,
I
call the
just
roll.
say something real quick, Fran Pollard?
No, Fran, sorry.
I just want to thank Greg and Len for doing all that work on the fire situation, fire prevention, I like to say. Thank you for caring and doing all that. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Appreciate that. Okay, call the roll and let's adjourn.
Claire.
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Jill.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Michelle.
Yes.
And Dave is also yes. We are adjourned at 9:26. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you.